I call the Honourable Member Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is my pleasure to take a call on the settlement bill today. This bill marks the end of a long journey for the Ngāti Manuhiri people, grievances which have spanned over 170 years. This redress is certainly well overdue. I'd like to acknowledge those that are here today and who haven't made it here today, who have worked long and hard to get to this settlement today. I'd also like to acknowledge those who are no longer with you, who have shown leadership and commitment and dedication to ensure that we can settle today. I'd also like to acknowledge the Minister, Chris Finlayson, who has been committed to ensuring that we get these settlements in a speedy process so we're not waiting years and years. I'd also like to acknowledge the Chair of the Māori Affairs Select Committee, Tauhanare, who has been extremely committed in ensuring that these bills come back into the House as speedily as they possibly can. This bill had over 100 submitters, which is a pretty huge number of submitters on a treaty bill. And he managed that process very professionally and in a very swift manner, and which has seen this bill return very quickly back into the House for the third reading. I wish we could turn back the clock. I really do. But we can't change what has happened, but we can move forward. And I think it's important that we understand that you have been very gracious in allowing us to settle the way we have today. Whenever I do these treaty bills, I always talk to my children the morning of the day of the settlement. And I tell them the story of the iwi and the people in your journey. And I tell them what has happened. And with this bill, I spoke to them this morning about how the government, the Crown, came and took land without consent and without acknowledgement. And I told them how we also changed legislation, so it was very hard to get that land back. And I put it into the here and the now for them, and I said, how would you feel if the Crown came along now and said, we want your land, and didn't even tell us about it or didn't even offer us anything for it, and then we couldn't get it back? And they were totally appalled that that could even happen. But more appalled was it when they said, you've waited a long time for this. You've waited over 100 years. We've been on our land for 15 years, and they couldn't believe that it could happen. And their connection to our land where we live, where we've brought them up, where they have their roots, they couldn't believe that the Crown could do that to somebody. And I think it's important that we share these stories and make them real in the here and the now. And I look up in the gallery and I see one young youth who has got his eyes shut for the time being, having a bit of a rest. But I think it's important that we bring youth to these settlements and we talk about them, because we're making stories and tales and history. And we need people to be able to go and talk about these in 80 years' time and say, this is what happened in the settlement process, and these what the issues were, and this is what the discussion was about. And I think it's important that we share that with the next generation, because to me, settlements are about the next generation. And I think the Crown does have to apologise for the grievances, and they were vast, against your people. And we do have to settle with commercial redress. That is really important. But settlements are about your future generations. It's about giving them aspiration and opportunities. And it's about understanding where we've gone, being content and gracious about where we're at, and moving forward for all our generations. Because New Zealand is a wonderful country, and we have to move forward as one if we're going to have a prosperous country. I think today is a day to celebrate for everybody, and I thank you for coming all the way to Wellington to listen to the third reading, and I thank you for your commitment and your dedication and your leadership for your cause. And I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Member Lewissa Wall.